For more now on how Moscow is handling the incident is foreign policy expert Michael Szanto. Thank you so much for being here, Michael. It's great to see you. All right, so listen, I mean, we heard from the president's spokesperson here, but is it odd that the world has not heard from Vladimir Putin himself regarding this? Or is that perhaps by design because of the secretive nature of the work that was going on at this facility?
Yes, because it's secretive and it's not a flattering incident. But I think it's important that we don't let it distract us from the danger of Russian cruise missiles that they use, for example, in Syria, fired from the Caspian Sea that are nuclear capable. Because God forbid, for example, they hit a target in the U.S. that flies under all of our radars.
All right, so that's the real danger here with this particular type of cruise missile is that it would be under the radar, it would be much harder to detect?
Yes, absolutely. It flies under a radar. For a while, they were experimenting with a blimp just right outside D.C. to detect these things. And they can be nuclear tipped. They can be fired from a ship, a sub, or a plane. And they're conventionally powered, not like this nuclear-powered one.
So I want to talk about the danger of this nuclear-powered one here, because this is something that Russia has basically said could reach anywhere on the planet. And there was a researcher, an expert over at MIT, who referred to this as a mini flying Chernobyl. Is that a reference to the fact that this could potentially be, in essence, almost like a dirty bomb?
Well, no, I actually disagree with that.
Okay.
First of all, the Russian intercontinental ballistic missiles can hit the United States with at least 1,200 nukes, big nukes, in 30 minutes. They could actually triple that because many of these things can carry 5 to 10 nukes. We are looking at a miniature meltdown of like a small reactor, but people have it really confused. Reactors don't create the most dangerous radioisotopes. If the Russians create a nuclear bomb and they stick cobalt, that's called the doomsday bomb because it has a half-life of 8 years, fast enough to be deadly, long enough that 100 years later, it's still deadly. So, and actually from nuclear explosions, you have radioisotopes created that exist for about 24 hours that are massively deadly beyond anything else. So people confuse a reactor meltdown, which is a problem. But it, in the case of Chernobyl, it really was only the people at the plant who got radiation sickness.
What do you think that the international community should be saying about this? We haven't really heard a lot in terms of world leaders chiming in on the heels of this accident.
So reactor meltdowns, and this is what it is, a flying reactor meltdown, is an environmental issue. But I will say something that people forget, that American children, maybe not anymore, 70s and 80s, had a little bit of a traceable radioactive strontium from the nuclear weapons test that we even did in the United States. So it's an environmental issue, but not as big as people imagine. But the fact that the Russians are developing nuclear weapons that they're working on to be practical is a danger. They have 4 to 10 times as many tactical battlefield nukes as us, for example.
All right, so something else that's causing a little bit of confusion about this particular incident is the conflicting reports about whether or not there was this village near the testing site that was evacuated or not evacuated. People there apparently were told to evacuate initially. Then you had Russian officials saying that's absolute nonsense. How do you interpret this?
Well, the Russians lie. We saw this even, frankly, the Russian government reverting to Soviet form. They lied about Chernobyl. They covered it up. But the only cancers that really spiked after Chernobyl were thyroid cancer. And a lot of it is because the people were continually exposed to milk with radioactive iodine, or actually isotopes similar. So you could make sure the people don't drink milk contaminated with radiation. And in Ukraine, it's still contaminated a little bit. Or you give them iodine so that you block it from being absorbed. So we did see a spike. So yes, they're lying. I mean, you probably wouldn't want to stay in that village, but unless people are getting radiation burns or radiation sickness, you aren't really seeing people at extremely high risk. You have to remember that we have nearly 40% chance in our lifetime of having cancer. So if you take 200,000 people you think are exposed and they have a 0.5% higher thing statistically, if it's not a fluke, then you might see some cases. But they only found a rise, surprisingly, of thyroid cancer with Chernobyl. And that's what this is, a miniature Chernobyl.
All right. Michael Szanto, thank you so much for being here. It's good to see you.
You're
Thanks
very
for coming
welcome
on the show. Thanks a lot.